So next I'm going to welcome, and now I've asked, again, I'm going to mess it up. Janne Kalliola, close enough, who's the Chief Growth Officer and founder of Exov, and he's going to come speak to us today about ICT greenhouse gas emissions. Welcome, Janne.
Okay, let's see if I can use this one. Yes, excellent. Okay, so as said, my name is Janne Kalliola. It was pronounced extremely well, better than most people, but this is good. And I'm here to talk about how the greenhouse gas emissions are exploding and what the open source community can do about it. Briefly, I'll talk about myself and a book. I have written a book about it. Then talk a little bit why the green coding is important, what to do, and what next. So, as said, I'm the founder of Exov, a software company of 80 people in Finland, Estonia. I have been coding from '83. It was really good to see the numbers that I was used to back in the '90s when you can actually have a fully working multitasking operation system in 500 kilobytes in Amiga 500. The good old days. I've been working with open source from late 90s onwards. I've been in a couple of companies that actually produced open source software. Now my company is sort of standing on the shoulder of giants. And then I've been interested in green coding for a few years and as said, written a book about it. So, if you would like to have an introduction to Finnish language and learn the green coding, then the left one would be your choice. It's 130 pages of vihreä koodaus in Finnish, and then there's also the English version for the language restricted people. And I just published the second edition of the book on Tuesday. There's also stuff about the AI, cryptos, blockchain, IoT data, and the others, plus of course the original content. But I guess that you know, because you are already here, that this is important, but I'll still explain it once more. This has been explained already twice, but the third is the charm. So, depending on the different sources, that the ICT sector accounts from 4 to 10% of the world's energy consumption, and then the Lancaster University made a quite recent study that it's 2.1 or up to 3.9% of the greenhouse emissions. And these numbers are growing, and we actually spew out more greenhouse gases than the airlines. If you take the UN statistics that the annual global emissions are 58 gigatons, then the average of that 2.0 and 3.9 is 3.0. It means that it's 1.5 billion tons of carbon dioxide equivalent every single year. And to give a perspective, it's around the amount of mass of land animals and people. And this comes from XKCD, so it must be true. And then if you look at the open source global market was estimated to be around 20 billion USD in 21, and it should grow to 52 billion in 27. And the global IT market was in 22, I didn't find 21 numbers, because for some reason these are not published for every single year. It was 341 billions. And it should grow to 580 billions. So it means that the open source is now 5.8% of the IT market, and in 2027 it will be 9%. And these are significant numbers, because if you can make changes inside these numbers, you can actually have a huge impact. So this actually matters a lot. So, what should be done? I hope that most of you or all of you know that the software actually needs hardware to run. It has been there's been more and more layers coming as spoken just before my session. But it still has hardware somewhere. Cloud is just a fancy name for somebody else's computer. The hardware causes emissions during its life cycle. That was already discussed. It needs electricity to run, and the emissions depend on the type of the energy used, and also the energy mix in the countries. For example, Finland is pretty clean in energy. It was 35 grams of CO2 equivalent per produced kilowatt. And then in Germany, it was around 400 or something like that, 11-fold difference between countries. And then you go to Bosnia, that it was more than 1 kilogram. I don't have numbers in China, but I guess that they are pretty huge. So the energy production causes emissions, and it also the renewables, because the wind turbines just doesn't sprout from the ground, but somebody needs to build them and so forth. So it's actually very, very crucial to save energy. And the simple things, what has been found, there was a study ranking program in language by energy efficiency by University of Beira Interior from Portugal. They found out that the less execution time is spent, the less energy is consumed. That seems sort of very straightforward, but there are two things. First, that now it's scientifically proven that is actually the case. And second, that for example, uses of RAM and energy had no sort of connection at all. The less data we transfer, the less energy the network uses, and the less hardware is used, the less emissions are caused. So just these three very simple principles is all that we need to know. But when we talk about the open source projects, then you need to think about the impact above all things. If you have a popular open source project, the bigger it will be your impact, or the impact of the change in the energy consumption. For example, one of the most widest used open source component is SQLite. Every one of you have at least one instance of it with you, because all the modern mobile phones have it inside. Windows 10 has it inside. Mac OS has it inside, and so forth, so forth. There is more than 1 trillion copies of SQLite in use in the world. So if you make a small change, that for every single operation, it will take 1 nanosecond more, that amount, it means that the combined effect is 1,000 seconds. So you need to keep in mind that what is the responsibility of the popular open source software. So if you are a project owner, you need to get the energy consumption on your radar. If you don't know anything about it, then get somebody to help you. And then if you are a contributor to open source project, then you should spend some of your time to look for the energy hogs and fix them. But do not waste effort in small scale projects. If your open source system is used by you and your mother, it doesn't really count at how much does it use energy, even if your mother uses for awesome stuff. But if you are working on way more widely used project that happens to be also an energy hog, then there will be way bigger impact. So if you are working only with small scale stuff and you want to have an impact, abandon your stuff and participate in projects that are more widely used, because then your contribution actually has an impact, and it's not just for the good of your own mental health that you have tried to do something. So, what next? remember that this is a journey, that do not expect everything to change at once. We engineers, we have a tendency that now we know the truth, now everything must change immediately, and that is not how the world rolls, I've unfortunately found out. So don't set too ambitious goals. The most important thing in starting a journey is to take the first step, and I do congratulate you all because you have been here and you have already taken that step. So just keep on walking, you are already on the journey. So, thank you, and let's discuss this on lunch.